As far as I remember, I've always been fascinated about road trips ever since I was little. The factor of such definitely came from my dad, who once worked as a truck driver and would often bring me along with him. Now being grown up and all, those sweet memories eventually faded along with time. The last time that I graduated was nearly a decade ago. All the jobs that I took were merely a part of an inconsistent, unpleasant career that barely supported my financial burden. Being nearly stuck in a dilemma, I finally decided that it was time that I find a stable career with a job that I actually enjoy. Fast forward a few months after, I couldn't be much happier to have finally possessed a competent truck driver's license after digging out my remaining money for the lessons. The moment that I took hold of it, I did not waste time to seek for companies that would hire me. It took some quick browsing before I found a small, unnoticed company that offered good bucks. It introduced itself as a meat company that desperately needed new drivers as demands were increasing lately. I partook in an interview and sure enough, secured the job since they were unexpectedly that desperate. My orientation was right on the next day. Prior to it, my new boss ordered me to sign some terms and contracts and handed me a set of documents, which he described it as the company's rules and regulation. Since the goods I transport are fresh meats, it means that I had to drive midnight carrying them from the factory to its destination before morning for the public to purchase and consume. The orientation went smoothly and I quickly adapted to the lifestyle of a trucker within days. During my first few days as an amateur, I was accompanied by my supervisor who observed my driving. He told me that it was protocol for a driver to be accompanied along the ride, but most of the time I would have to be alone due to worker shortages. Therefore, driving solo wouldn't be an uncommon thing in this company. Well, it was pretty awesome driving around late at night, enjoying the night view, although I still needed to arrive on time. Other than that, I was coping with the job really well. One usual night as I arrived to my company to start my job, I was greeted by my slumbery boss, who told me that I needed to handle today's delivery alone. I glared at him momentarily before nodding, and I walked toward the six-wheeled, rigid fridge truck that I had been working on. It was my first ever solo. The engine of the truck roared alive as I turned the key forward. The headlights illuminated the wall in front of me with such brightness that I had to look away momentarily. Next thing, I shifted the gear and drove towards the loading bay as I was taught. The ramp gradually opened as I pressed one of the buttons, exposing cool nitrogen gas out into the already cold atmosphere. Sounds of rumbling faded in as a forklift carrying meat packages unloaded into the container, creating bangs and impacts which shook the truck and me inside of it. As soon as I heard a familiar tap pattern, I instantly recognized it as a signal and shut the ramp close. It wouldn't take long before I exited the factory and took the main road. The GPS voice made an indistinguishable announcement. Your journey to Joe's Meat Market, Oregon is 179 miles northwest. Have a safe drive. Initially, I drove through residential areas before passing by farms and factories. It wasn't until I had to make a turn into a smaller road which would cover the majority of my trip. The streetlights weren't well lit, which gave the road a gloomy appearance. As I advanced for 30 miles, streetlights no longer covered the roads, and all that was left, illuminated, was the headlight of my truck, the dashboard and the glittering stars across the sky, and on occasion high beam lights from passing cars. All around me were lush and thick forests, making the surrounding extra dark. The truck's engine vibrated as it cruised down the road, and it shook my body throughout the drive. Staring at the illuminated road, I couldn't stop myself from thinking the set of special rules that I had read earlier. Special rules. In this section of rules, it is obligatory for every worker to abide every rules that were listed. Failure to do so will almost guarantee a life-threatening hazard. This version covers special rules for long-haul truck drivers. Rule 1. As you are operating as a night shift driver, you must keep the headlights on at all times, especially on dark roads even when your truck is stationary. This might sound simple but extremely important for safety reasons. As I recalled such rule, I wondered why it was in the special list when it was a literal common sense in the real world. I took a turn at a sharp corner and accelerated the truck. As I stepped on the pedal, I recalled the second rule. Rule 2. If you are driving in a remote area, abide the traffic rules if there are vehicles nearby. However, if you are completely alone, try to cruise at a higher speed as to quickly avoid unwanted visitors. Unwanted visitors? That sent a chill down my spine. I mean, who would want anything from a meat truck? That was when I jerked on the brake pedal suddenly as a figure quickly approached ahead of me. It was a person who seemed to be lost. Thinking of the following rule, I did not stop the truck, and instead swerved and overtook him. Rule number 3. Never allow anybody to ride in the truck, even stranded or lost people. Failure to do so will result in an immediate disqualification from this company, if you're lucky enough not to fall into its trap. Staring at the rearview mirror and the dashboard camera, I couldn't help myself but curse under my breath. Why not? This was getting frustrating. Just a few minutes after the incident, a yellow indicator popped out on the dashboard. Something that I really wish hadn't happened to me right now. The truck's engine compartment began filling with smoke, and traces of it escaped through the crack of the hood, forcing me to halt the truck. Apparently, luck couldn't get any worse as the engine overheated in the middle of a creepy forest. Water coolant was running low, and so I stepped out of the truck to grab the water jerry. As I opened the door, a cool breeze blew over my body, sending chills within my body. I embraced myself and shone the torchlight towards where I was facing. I clumsily waddled to the side of the truck, both legs still cramped from the tedious driving. Then I pulled a trigger which opened the hood of the truck. I could feel the heat radiating onto my body from the overheated engine. I took a quick break before pouring some water into the coolant tank. I left the hood open for some time while I chilled inside the cabin. It was then that I realized my delivery had to be inevitably delayed. It took almost half an hour for me to be confident enough to continue the journey. As I stepped outwards again to shut the hood, something bizarre happened. The same guy that I overtook a while ago appeared behind my truck. Completely dumbfounded but somehow expecting it, I glanced towards him as he slowly approached me. He was in his 40s, had brown hair, and appeared to be dirty and torn and looked emotionless. In a deep, monotone voice, he asked, "Why did you not stop just now?" I hesitated for a while before replying. "Sorry, but company doesn't allow us to pick up strangers." "In the middle of nowhere, and you think it's okay for me to be alone here?" "Look, I'm sorry," I stuttered, "but..." A car suddenly drove past us, its high beam distracting my view on that guy. I covered my eye with my arm. As I put my hand down, the guy seemed to be nowhere, except he was now at my right side. My heartbeat skipped, but I remained in composure. "What are you waiting for? I'm not letting you go this time." His face began to show irritation. "Alright, just stay here while I get things done." I walked to the front of the truck to shut the hood, all while shivering from the sudden change of aura that this guy gave. I quickly stepped into the cabin and instinctively shut the door. barricading myself from the man outside, and I activated the locks. The click on the door as it locked was something that I anticipated so much that it gave me a quick sigh of relief. The man appeared beside me, now knocking on the door, probably wondering why I had locked myself in, or maybe not. My heartbeat raced as I rushed for the keys and ignited the engine. The rumbling came again, but I was so grateful that I could feel it. I instantly shifted to first gear and accelerated ahead. The guy's yell and knocking was suppressed by the loud diesel engine, but I could already imagine him cursing as he banged on the truck. As the truck gained speed, the banging shifted all the way to the back of the truck, and then came silence. And that was when I heard a bone-chilling scream. That was not a human scream, it sounded too unearthly. My primal instinct could sense evil behind the deafening roar. I glanced at the rear of my truck only to visualize a traumatizing silhouette which was now chasing me. From what I could see, it stood 6 feet tall even with all 4 of its legs. Its appearance was too dark, but I could definitely notice a darker patch of eyes staring into my side mirror, right into my soul, its serrated teeth hungry for flesh. The figure approached rapidly as the truck's rear light illuminated the unearthly creature in red. I could hear bangs on the side of the truck. It was attempting to breach the container. I brake-checked unexpectedly, making the creature unable to react in time and tumbling onto the asphalt. I accelerated harder this time and fled the scene. That was when another rule popped into my memory. Rule number 4. If something is following you, don't let them catch you. Do your best to survive. Something. Is that creature the something that they're referring to? I tried to connect the dots while simultaneously focusing on the road. Adrenaline was rushing endlessly when all of a sudden, a horde of these similar creatures flanked from the side of the road. My jaw dropped as I was flabbergasted by the sudden attack. I swerved to avoid them and hit one of them. I felt a huge crash, but the truck kept on going. A series of bangs and clangs reverberated the truck's chassis as the container was constantly ambushed mercilessly by the creatures. I couldn't think of much of a solution as they gradually broke in. I couldn't thank my luck more as a tunnel approached in front. Taking this opportunity, I swerved right and took down 3 to 4 of these creatures off the truck. I could hear these splatter as they were crushed between the truck and tunnel. I did the same at the left side of the truck as I crossed the double line and skidded against the tunnel. The creatures on the other side were obliterated. The tunnel ended as the last creature's body laid onto the ground from the devastating blow. I celebrated momentarily, punching the steering wheel as soon as I exited the tunnel. I drove for another 5 miles, still high on the adrenaline. I didn't notice the sharp curve in front of me and the massive truck battered into the woods as I couldn't react in time. The truck was too fast and I was running for my life. The truck eventually came to a complete halt, jolting me forward like a dummy rag doll. I cursed under my breath. I just thanked that my seatbelt had saved my life. I shifted into reverse, but horror dreaded upon me as I realized that the RPM was at its max. This only meant one thing. I was stuck. I screamed in panic and in pain. I scanned around me. No vehicles. I was completely alone. I felt hopeless then. I already called my boss and he promised to send a tow truck as quickly as he could. I've been hiding in my truck for about 15 minutes now. I don't think they'll ever make it though. Reason so, I could hear the creatures from a mile away now, approaching at an alarming rate.